Hey everybody, Darren Reeves here, President of DP Distribution and Consulting. Just want to give you a little history lesson here, and don't drop off yet. Everybody says that when they see this, it really kind of opens their eyes. Every time I do training with a client, they really think this part's good. So hang on just a second, it's only 60 seconds. Okay, let's talk about ISO 9001, the 1994 version. That's when it came out and it had full-blown, was implemented in the US and everywhere else. It was supposed to be the end-all, the be-all. Back then, the FDA had their GMPs that were actually written in 1976, or were actually implemented in 1976. Our regulations hadn't changed since then. So the FDA was looking for a way to have a more robust QSR program. This was in the early, mid-90s. I was back in the industry back then, so I've been doing this for 35 years. I lived this stuff. Also live in Richmond, Virginia, so I'm about an hour and a half away from the center where they make all the rules. So I was right in the middle of all of this. When the ISO 9001 came out, the FDA looked at it and said, hey, this is great. It's got all the things that we need, including what they called back then pre-production design controls. And that's exactly what it had in it. So lo and behold, in the late 90s, around 1997, they implemented the QSR, which is the cGMPs, our quality system regulation, which is still in effect today. And it's also what they're getting ready to change, we believe. Okay, lo and behold, about that time, the ISO group also came up and said, we need a standard that's a little more specific to medical devices. So they said, okay, well, if you're ISO 9001 compliant and you add these other rules that were marked in ISO 13485, then you would put those together. You could not be ISO 13485 certified without being ISO 9001 certified. So that's important to know. Around the turn of the century in 2000, the ISO group went off in a different direction. And so the medical side of the ISO group said, well, we've got to have our own standard specific to medical devices. And they changed it in, I think around 2002 to make it more permeable to the medical device industry. So at that point, ISO 9001 probably had 4 or 5 revisions, and 13485 had, I think, 3 revisions. We're now to the 2016 version of ISO 13485. The point here is they're not, the FDA's cGMP and 13485 are not too far apart because they came from the same parent. They both came from ISO 9001. Okay, so it's important to know that. So if you're completely and truly compliant with the FDA's QSR, you're going to be pretty close to ISO 13485. There's going to be some nuances and things you're going to have to learn. Don't let a lot of people out there scare you that this new change is coming. Where the biggest challenge we're going to see is with the field investigators actually implementing it, not necessarily the companies are going to have a tough time getting compliant. Okay, so this is Darren Reeves again, DP Distribution. If you have any questions, just like us, let us know, give us a call, give us contact, and we'll see you next time.